Hey guys, I'm Cryssy and welcome to the first episode of Gingerwatch here on overwatchesports.org. Today we're going to be talking about matchmaker rating, the opening of esports in Overwatch, and what the community wants to know. So stay tuned and let's get on with our Overwatch talk. The one thing that everybody is looking forward to in Overwatch is the matchmaking. Now, we have seen matchmaking in so many games like CSGO, League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm, Call of Duty. That's just the beginning of the amount of games that we see matchmaking being implemented to form a sort of esports vibe. And in these games, we do see a ton of imbalance. A lot of creators, a lot of game development companies have not put in the effort to developing a really diverse range of matchmaking. It's very, very difficult to progress further in the game when matchmaking is so hard on the player. And I think that Blizzard will be doing this correctly. And there's a lot of talk in the community about what we want to see. So let's move into some of the community members' comments on matchmaking. So a lot of what we hear on the Reddit threads, on the Facebook group, on Twitter, on Instagram, anywhere that is accessible by social media, on the forums, is that people want skill-based matchmaking. And this is based off of people's skill, not about how much they play, not about the classes they play, because you could be really good at Tracer, but then suck with Winston, or you could be really good Widowmaker, but suck at Mercy. And I think a lot of people need to realize that this game is incredibly diverse. So the first thing is skill-based matchmaking, which is what people want to see. I don't really know how they would go about implementing this. A lot of people are talking about third-party stat websites. People are talking about communication-based, like ranking based on team voting, that kind of thing. Being able to vote for who's good, who's bad, who's more diverse, that kind of thing in game itself. And there's been a lot of conflicting ideas, but I think the biggest thing that we can go is based off of wins versus loses on an individual basis. So Blizzard can implement something that has to do with upkeep in game. So how often are people playing and participating in their team's game? How much damage do they do? How much healing do they do? And that would just give a little bit of an idea, rather than people being carried, which is what we saw in World of Warcraft arenas, we saw it in StarCraft. People could buy their way to Platinum, people could buy their way to 2200 Glad. We don't want that. So it should be based off of an individual team skill rather than a team-based approach. Furthermore, I think that players should not be penalized for not playing as frequently as other players, so people's matchmaking should not go down just because they're not playing as much. I think it's all based on skill, and it really demotes casual players from participating in community tournaments, community events, in a competitive aspect. Really shuts a lot of doors. So I think that people who do play less should also have that opportunity to scale just as much as the people who play every single day. So it's really hard to address the question of MMR and matchmaking when Blizzard hasn't actually set a finite example of what they want to bring into the game come launch. However, there's a lot of community input, and I think Blizzard will make the proper choices in implementing a matchmaking system in Overwatch. So let's now talk about what people want to see aside from the matchmaking system with respect to gameplay. So the biggest thing in the community aside from matchmaking right now goes along with esports, because we are all about esports here at Overwatch Esports. It's spectator mode. Now, spectator mode is a huge thing for players. It helps with picking teams, it helps with improving skill, it helps with involvement in the community, it helps with replays, so players can nitpick all they want about what they were doing, because with spectator mode comes replays. And it also gives teams the opportunity to have benched players, being able to examine the team and work with the team and see what they could improve on and see what they could add to the strategy, and what basically it helps gameplay as a whole. And the great thing about Overwatch is that the time is set to 10 minutes for every match, and the match length right now is sitting around 7.5 minutes. And that's really helpful because a lot of games, they don't have a healthy time limit. Like Call of Duty, it's also 10 minutes. but you constantly go over and you can never finish a match. But with Overwatch, we're seeing 7.5 minutes, roughly the amount of time that we can get through a match and complete a match, which is pretty cool if you don't get stuck on the objectives for too long. Basically, the implementation of spectator mode alleviates the team's non-inclusiveness by allowing other team members to see what they're doing as well as comment during gameplay, and it makes it so that nobody's sitting around off the bench for too long. 7.5 minutes is a fair time frame to be benched and to help improve the team, and it's just a really good tool for player development, skill development, strategy development, and team development later on when we do see this come into esports. So another thing that people have been talking about is an outside third-party website that tracks stats, MMR, and basically everything that you need to know when building a team. And this would work similarly to World of Logs, where it would track things like scope accuracy, it would track healing, upkeep. By upkeep, I'm talking about the amount of time you spend in battle, and there would be a cool little algorithm that I'm sure somebody could come across that would account for respawn time. So maybe every time you get sent back to the respawn zone, there's a 15-20 second timer that doesn't account for the data during that time frame while you're running back to the main battle, or maybe once you engage, the timer is stopped. But that's one of the coolest things that I would think would come to Overwatch, because it's a big deal. Like, outside stat tracking is probably one of the greatest things that ever came to World of Warcraft when it came to arenas and PvE raid settings and world bosses, because it really allowed you to break down your skills and break down what you needed to work on versus what you were really good at, and kind of measure that against your other raid members. And once again, because esports is such a big deal in this community, and it's going to be a big deal in this community, it would be very beneficial to have something along those lines, which allowed for a greater ability to build your team based off of your strengths rather than what you think would be a good strategy or a good build. Because if you can see all these stats coming together in a team play, it's a lot more effective than just looking at a game and being like, oh that worked, because it could be a fluke. But if you have the actual numbers, just like everything that we experience, you can back up what you see with these statistics, which is really cool and really beneficial for games like this. And finally, we have our concerns with Overwatch. Now, I don't really want to get too much into this, but people are very scared about banning classes. Now, I think that everyone agrees, or most people agree, that having a limit in tournaments to the amount of heroes that you can play is a good idea. So maybe instead of having the full 21 heroes available, we have a set 7 that a team can use that are predetermined, or maybe a set 9 that are predetermined, so that you're not constantly switching heroes. And the reason being is that you can mold your team based off of what you're facing rather than what you are good at or have a strategy to, which is very important. It's not just an FPS game. This is very much so like a MOBA or another RTS, where it takes a lot of skill and a lot of practical planning to execute properly, and there's a lot of skill and a lot of communication that goes into this. So limitations during tournaments on the amount of heroes that an individual can cycle through, which should be probably set to 9 or 10 for the whole team, just a set of 10 heroes that they can play, and then they can cycle through 2 or 3 throughout the match, so that we don't see a lot of play based off of the teams facing off each other rather than what they're good at, because somebody might blow strategy by switching to Tracer mid-game or screw something up, and that's not fun for anyone. Or like a whole team could go Tracer and just nuke the hell out of someone, and yeah, that's cool, it adds to the surprise factor, but at the same time, it really it limits the gameplay more than it helps it, because you don't want to have all of that accessibility. And there's also a lot of concerns based off of balance. When Genji was introduced, I can't tell you how many times I saw screenshots that read like 48-5, 62-7. Like, that's crazy for a single match in like 7 or 8 minutes. Somebody doing that much damage, getting that many kills, is kind of overkill. So what we're gonna see in the future is different mechanics, or it's the same mechanics but nerfed. Maybe implementation of different mechanics. There have been some changes, like I do remember Bastion was altered, and a few other characters like Reinhardt were altered from the alpha from BlizzCon 2014 to the closed beta in 2015. And a lot of people are saying that people will have an advantage because they have 8 months playing, but one of the biggest things I do love to stress in the community and with my friends on a personal level is that even though somebody has a beta for 8 months, it doesn't give them an advantage, because what you play during the beta isn't what's in the end product. And if people are really that concerned, and there is a lot of comparison to TF2, I do not agree with it, but if people say that, oh, people have more access to TF2 or they're more inclined because they played TF2 for so long, go play TF2 if you're that concerned and you don't have beta. And there are tons of FPSs where you can test your skills. Of course, it's not Overwatch. There's a lot of class differences and mechanic differences in Overwatch and make it a beautiful, unique game, but you can practice and you can try, and once again, it's not the same game. Like, the game changed so much from one year to another. We still have 8 months left. It's not going to be the same game, and if you're that concerned, go check out all the replays on all the cool people channels. I have a channel where I play. You can come check out my Twitch stream. There's Twitch streams online, and you won't be left behind, because believe me, it's worth playing and it's worth waiting for, and going pro in it is not gonna be as niche-y as you may expect. And the last thing I want to talk about is the hiatus for Overwatch. Now, we know that our Overwatch devs have been working tons and tons and tons, and they've been putting out so much great work, and we're so grateful over the course of November and late October how much effort the Blizzard devs have put into Overwatch, and the game designers and the level designers and the class designers and mechanic designers. Thank you so much. But they will be going on a hiatus where the Overwatch beta will not be able to be played for until January, so a good solid 20 days, and they definitely deserve a break. But during that time, they will be working on content to put out to us for the new year. There's going to be tons of new content. I haven't really discussed what it was going to be, but we do know that it's going to be great. So thank you, Blizzard. You worked really hard this year, and I cannot wait to see what you're going to put out in January. So that pretty much wraps up this week's Gingerwatch on overwatchesports.org. My name is Cryssy, and if you have any questions, don't be hesitant to throw it down there, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button up there. I will be bringing you videos every Saturday for the next indefinite amount of time. I totally love this game. I'm totally behind it. I love the team at overwatchesports.org, and yeah, you can find me on my Twitter, on my Facebook. I'll link all of that down below. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I love you all, and I will see you soon. Bye!